And then again, him with the square toes had gone back to his house. He stood once more and again in his flat house without sides to it and without a roof, with his soulless sword standing upright in his hand. His pale white horse had galloped over waters and thundered over land. The time of dying was over. It was time to bury the dead. Tea-Cake made a big fuss about it, but Janie made him go visit a doctor. She said there was no use fighting it, the dog looked evil, and she didn't want none of that evil getting into Tea-Cake. There were a ton of people that wanted to see the doctor, though, and they had to wait 3 days, and by that time, the doctor had done had enough of people, and he drank his stress away. He charged Tea-Cake and Janie twice as much as the white folk that come see him. It cost them all the money they had in their pocket just to have the doctor look at Tea-Cake's face. Janie was sure glad they did, because when the doctor heard Tea-Cake been bit by a dog, he sobered up real fast. He said Tea-Cake got rabies from that evil dog and gave him some pills to hold Tea-Cake over, but said Tea-Cake needed to get himself to a hospital real fast. Tea-Cake gone and made a real fight against the hospital, brought Janie to tears more than once because she feared he would die. Eventually, Tea-Cake gave in and said he would go to the hospital. Janie sent for the money in Orlando and got Tea-Cake into the best hospital around because it had been a week and he was already starting to look sick. The hospital charged them extra on account of them being black, but Janie didn't mind. Tea-Cake really hated that Janie was paying for everything without a fight. "Why you letting them push you around like that, Janie? You don't look too black. Heck, I bet if it weren't on account of you being with me, they'd give you money off 'cause you're so pretty." Janie told them to hush, and she paid the doctors what they asked. Some of them was nice to her, and some of them stayed out of her way, but they treated Tea-Cake good enough, and that's all she cared about. They could spit at her feet as long as they kept Tea-Cake alive. After about 2 weeks of Tea-Cake being in the hospital, Janie started to feel weak. She has to sit down after a few hours of standing, and her back starts to cramp. She says it must be from the storm and the stress, but Tea-Cake says maybe the rabies spread to her. The doctor said she could touch him, but he worried that they might have been wrong. He made her talk to a doctor, but the doctor said she don't have rabies. She is expecting a child. He tells her she is already 5 months pregnant, and she runs to tell Tea-Cake. She had never seen a man cry happy tears before in her life, but Tea-Cake does it. He cries and laughs and grabs Janie around the waist and kisses her stomach. Janie's as happy as she is scared. She had never had a real mother, and her grandmother forced a life upon her that she never wanted. She didn't want to do nothing like that to her baby. She got down on her knees one day and prayed to a God that she had never really spoken to, a God she had only ever watched. "Dear God, I knows I ain't been the best child, and I knows I don't deserve nothing, but this baby I's going to have, they deserve more than I think I can give 'em. I don't know nothing about being a mother, and I sure as heck would like some help. So if you's willing, I pray that when I have this baby, you give me the gift of knowing what to do with it. I pray it don't mess up its life, and I pray it will love me as much as I already love it." Janie cried as she prayed, 'cause she knew that if God didn't help her, she would be lost, and her baby would be lost. And she ain't ever wanted nothing as much as she wanted to be good to that baby. The doctor says that Tea-Cake will be in the hospital for 2 months, but after that he should be able to go home and live a pretty decent life. He can work like before, and all he has to do is take some expensive pills. But Janie doesn't care that the pills take up the rest of the money in the bank. She still owns that house back in Eatonville, and that should be able to cover the extra costs and then some. Tea-Cake didn't like the idea of Janie going back to Eatonville. He began to become paranoid. He asked her if there was someone back in Eatonville she was going to run off with. He accused her of wanting her old life back, and worried she would leave him in the hospital sick and dying. Once, he even asked in a fit of paranoia if the baby growing inside her was really his. Janie was a good wife, and every time he began to accuse her of anything offensive, she would stroke his head and talk calmly to him. Every time she reassured him, he would apologize and ask her why she still loved him. She would just laugh and kiss him and tell him to get some rest. Secretly, she wondered if the rabies was affecting his brain. She wondered if maybe the doctors weren't as sure as they seemed to be. Janie and Tea-Cake passed the time in the hospital by playing checkers, rolling dice, and picking out baby names. Tea-Cake wanted to name it Motorboat if it was a boy, and Janie wanted Phoebe if they had a girl. Tea-Cake was anxious to get out of the hospital to start working and support his baby. He said he was going to teach her how to shoot, and how to roll dice just right so that you won most of the time, but not too many times so that people don't think you's cheating. Janie said she was going to plant a pear tree so that she could show her little one how the bees love the flowers and the flowers love them right back. And she said that she would tell them they could marry whoever they wanted, didn't much care as long as it was a real love. But they didn't get to show their baby how to shoot, or roll dice, or love a real love, because that baby died inside Janie's stomach. Janie got worried one night near the end of their first month in the hospital. She said she couldn't feel her baby kicking no more. A doctor took her into a quiet room and told her she had lost the baby, and Janie cried until she had no more tears to cry. Then she told Tea-Cake. Just like she had never heard a man cry happy tears, she had never seen a man's heart break. He cried like last time and pulled her into his arms and kissed her stomach, and her tears came again like she had never cried the first time. And they spent that night crying in a tiny hospital bed. Janie walked around real quiet with her hands on her stomach for a week, and Tea-Cake had lost one of the light in his eyes. Janie didn't want to leave her husband, but she knew she was going to need more money soon, and Tea-Cake didn't talk to her much no more. She decided it was time to go back to Eatonville. That house would bring her a pretty penny, and maybe after Tea-Cake got well again, they could try for another little baby. And maybe this one wouldn't leave her.